My guest today is Joyner, founder of Joyner Interiors. Her focus on personal, authentic interiors guides her work as she helps clients uncover their true style, embrace color in unexpected ways, and blend heirlooms with new finds to create spaces that feel timeless and alive. We talk about the beauty of surrounding yourself with what speaks to you, but also the beauty in taking design risks and how sometimes you find yourself along the way. Enjoy! Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host of the Grandma Silver podcast and founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma Silver. Gray, welcome to the pod. I'm super excited to chat today. Could you go ahead and tell people who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there?
Yes, my name is Joyner. I am from Wilson, North Carolina, and I'm an interior designer here.
Can we talk about how you got into interior design?
Well, it's a very funny story. It all kind of happened organically, but I feel like it was something that has always been in me. And, I think about this question a lot because I get asked this question a lot, and it really, taking some dives to think about it. And I would say at a young age, I mean, my mom, it's so funny. We had like this grand piano growing up, and I remember I would come in after school or whatever, and she had rearranged the room. She had moved the grand piano by herself.
If that's not a determined woman, I don't know what is. But I feel like so many of us can relate to that of like, come hell
I
or
mean,
high water, this
yeah,
piano is.
I want this piano in this corner. And I'm not going to wait for anybody else to help me. So, I mean, she and I are like two peas in a pod. I mean, we're very much alike. My parents have built a house or a couple of houses and so on and so forth. And I'd always love to go with her to who she had at the time helping her with the house. And I would go and I would see all those fabrics and stuff and just think, oh God, this is so fun. The creative side was always in me. I love to play with clothes. I always love to dress up. I worked in retail from the age of 16 till mid 20s. I thought I was going to maybe open up a boutique or do something like that, but I just quickly decided that was maybe not what I wanted to do. So I ended up, working, in the big world, did HR and things like that. But then I had my children and I stayed at home with them and I was blessed enough to do that. Then after they were old enough in their school, I was kind of like, I want to do something. And I'd always gone over to people's house and they were like, Gray, help me with this bookshelf. Or, hey, Gray, what should I do here? What should I do here? And all that kind of stuff. I never really thought about it. I always thought that it was just, I'm like, okay, we're just having conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I never really thought that they were really asking me my opinion. It started happening more and more and more. And I had a friend was like, Gray, you need to do this. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. What do you mean? She was like, you're so good at it. She ended up setting me up with my first client and was
Wow.
like, this is what you're doing. You're doing it now. This is what you're charging. And I'm like, oh my God. I would say I grew up with my dad. I tell him he's got to start writing down his little sayings, but there's always been ones that always stuck with me. And it is where there's a will, there's a way. Anything worth having isn't easy. I had the will, I had the passion, I had the love that I put so much energy and time into learning about interior design that it just was, I swear, I wish I had spent as much studying and time like that when I was in school. I
Yeah.
probably would have gotten my MBA. I was a business major. So, I loved it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I've been in business now for 6 years. It's kind of, all happened fairly quickly, but organically in a way that, it just kind of happened.
Well, I like that your growth has kind of followed the same trajectory as how you even like fell into this, right? It is very natural. And I think and I have questions about this, but I think that also lends itself to sort of the authenticity of it all. It's not this forced thing. And I think especially in a creative industry, when that is very clear when things are more forced, they're not organic. So I'm eager to talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things I like to talk about is sort of like this place-based influence. So are you from, I think you said you're in North Carolina now. Are you from North Carolina?
I am. And I
Okay,
was
so
born and raised in the small town that we live in now.
oh, I love that so much. I'm similar. I'm maybe 7 minutes away from my parents' house. How has that influenced either just like you as a person, maybe some of your business ethos, some of your design preferences? Like, because surely I just feel like all of our environments shape us in some way or another.
I feel like I learned a lot from my mom
Hmm.
and her family, and one of her sisters as absolutely loves to collect things, and she can tell you what every single silver piece and silver flatware is. And I just always have loved that. Like there'll be these little fun forks or whatever, and you always be like, I'm gonna call Aunt Laney and find out what this is. I think that was the blood, the part that's in me. And we always would have nice dinners, and she would bring out the silver and use the things you have. Don't just keep them under lock and key. And that's
Hmm.
another thing that I've found a lot too with my clients. Like I'll have a client, I know that they have, some silver pieces. I'm like, where's your silver? And so it's so funny
Where
when
is it hiding?
where is it hiding? Because we're going to use it in your bookcase and we're going to use it to do this and, bring out those nice things. But I also grew up in a farm, a horse farm. My dad is a veterinarian. I can go out there and play in the field too, So it sounds like when I was first saying, oh, it sounds like I'm all teacups and, whatever, but I'm not, I mean, I grew up, having a horse and waking up in the morning and feeding your horse and taking care of him and all that kind of stuff. Hard work was definitely something that has been very much strongly instilled in me.
Hmm.
My dad is one of the hardest workers I've ever met in my life. He has that motto, anything worth having isn't easy to get. Then everybody would have it. And it makes sense. That I think has really shaped who I am. Between my mother, teaching me, I'd said to her actually last night, I said, Mom, I said, you should have been an interior designer. And she was like, maybe in a past life. I think, having a mom with that and then having a dad that instilled very hard work, where if you have a will to do it, you can do it. If you love it and you have a passion, go for it.
You're also touching on something which I would love to explore how that maybe impacts your design approach if I'm making assumptions here. But sort of this high low that existed just in your own upbringing, right? Of like the silver and the dirt. How do you like let's talk a little bit about your design philosophy. Like what does that look like to you? How do you define your style? Let's start there.
I would say one thing my mom told me too when I started doing this. She said, honey, if there is one thing you could do, just please, if you use a wallpaper in one client's house, don't use it in the next one. Make it their own individual space. And that's really stuck with me. I don't want anyone to walk into a house or a room or whatever and say, Great Joyner helped you. I have my opinions and things that I lean toward. Of course, I love color. I mean, I can't, if I go in a room and it's all white or all like very sterile feeling, it's not cozy to me. Saturated, warm colors to me feel cozy, make a room cozy. Layeredness makes a room feel cozy and lived in. But when you don't have those layers, then it just makes me feel more sterile. Now, there's some people who say, well, that makes my eye go crazy. And I
Mhm.
appreciate that. I can totally understand people who are in high stress jobs, whatever, they just want to come home and just look at just one color. And that's cool. I love all different types of design. I want them to, after we work together, I want them to be more confident in their style, in their home, that it's them. I think something that's very important to me is all of my clients I've become like forever friends with. I like to get to know them. I like to get to know their family, what makes them click. I have one client now, her husband, this is so funny, he cannot stand mayonnaise. Like, I
That is
really like to
not
take
where I
it
thought you were going, but I love it.
to
I'm enjoying this direction.
he asked me to say for Christmas, I gave him a t-shirt that had a Duke's mayonnaise. It was just so, we play with each other. I like to get to know people, to make their homes about them, to make them feel excited about their journey of opening up their creativity.
Well, speaking of that confidence, so as a designer, how are you going in? Because I think a lot of people kind of know what they like, but I don't know. One, obviously, they hire you because they a lot of times don't know how to pull any of it together or, like make it a thing, make it a space. But how are you instilling that confidence in folks who are coming to you and like they know who they are, they know what they like, but they don't know how to translate that authenticity to a space?
That's another thing. I mean, I love to educate the clients. Not like I'm educating them because, I mean, we're doing all of this together. I like to involve clients in different seminars. I just went to the flower showcase, flower,
Oh, yes.
and I took a client and her friend, and the more and more that they see, the more they're educated in the design, that then they start to feel more comfortable with the things I'm suggesting and saying, "Oh yeah, great. You were talking about that. That looks really, now I kind of see where you were going, because sometimes I have a hard time explaining myself sometimes. I'm like, okay, where's a picture for that? I have it in my head. You get to the point where you've worked with them long enough that finally I'm like, I know I've got it here and it's gonna look really good. That they get like, okay, I trust you, just do it. But you have to gain that trust. And I don't want to come into your house and just throw up everything that I know that works or whatever that, I know looks good, whatever. I want you to it to be an expression of you.
Color has come up a couple of times, and I do want to make sure to talk about that because I would argue that you do it very well. Let's start with just what color like means to you. What about color as a designer are you gravitating toward? Why is it important to you to include it in your design? Why do you like to encourage your clients to go for it and kind of take leaps of faith, which maybe sounds silly to say when you're talking about color, but I think when people are putting things into their homes, that could potentially maybe be a conversation that you have to talk them into.
So, and it's really funny. It's something that I've just kind of like over the past 10 years realized about myself. I was stay-at-home mom, working mom. I always loved to do things in my house and help people do things in their house and so on and so forth. But then when this all came about, I was like, yeah, I really do. I guess I do really love color. I go back and I look at my mom's house, and it does not have a lot of color. I mean, it has color, but it's not these saturated like hills and emerald greens. It's not like those kinds of colors. So it's not something that I was
It wasn't
basically
part of your environment growing
right.
up.
Not at all. Not at
Okay.
all. And the funniest thing was when we bought the house we're living in now, and I painted the bookshelves in my living room. They're teal. My husband came, this is before I started doing this. And my husband came in and we had the painters here and whatever, and they were priming the bookcase, and he came, he was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "Have you seen this? Ray, come here." And I was like, yeah, I have. And it's going to look good. It's going to look really good. Trust me. And now it has become like one thing that I think most people kind of just are like, oh my God, that looks really good. I never would have done that. Start with paint. I mean, paint's the cheapest thing. I mean, shoot, you could throw up another layer of paint if you hate it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not the end of the world. I don't want to look like anybody else. I don't want to dress like anybody else. I don't want to have in the same thing as everybody else. And I don't want my house to be the same as everybody else's. And I don't
Yeah.
want my clients to either. So, again, that's all part of like self-expression. I did think about this, again, because this question has come up to me before. I remember when I was little, and I have a really good friend. She actually is the marketing director at Sareed, and her mom they were building a house. Actually, it's right around the corner. And I remember going in it and being like, oh my gosh, I love this. Like the walls were like emerald green and cobalt blue and like mirrored walls. I mean, it was just the colors to me just made me feel excited. And so now I'm kind of like, I guess I kind of do go for that, don't I?
Well, isn't it funny when you don't realize some of the things that really speak to you until you sit down and you track your whole your whole trajectory of your life and you're like, "Oh, you know what? That does make sense."
Yeah, that does make
Yeah.
sense.
How do you encourage your clients to use color? Again, like your role is to kind of come in and make suggestions, encouragements. Obviously, you've got the vision. Surely not every single client is like, yeah, let's splash cobalt on the walls. So so there's a level of obviously them needing to kind of trust your expertise. You have to get that vision first. So how do you walk into a space? And some of this is just going to be innate because like it's a natural gift. But when you're walking into a space, are you thinking color right away?
Yeah, I mean, I like to use softer colors in bedrooms just because
Hmm.
I guess that's something that's always been drilled into my brain. I can like go into a house and I'll be like, okay, could be like a moody den, or this could be like a study, a moody study, and I can think of like using, a brown, something like that. So yeah, I would say that when you're in a house and the way that the light hits the house and plays throughout the house, you definitely, because some rooms are brighter than other rooms. Some rooms need more moodiness. And I try to figure out what I see the room playing its part as. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't paint the whole room white. I mean, I've done that plenty and use color in other areas. But I think it's all depends on the room and the light, functionality of it.
Which makes sense. I just didn't know from being very visual and kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
walking
yeah.
into a space like where your brain starts, you know?
Probably with color. You're exactly
Yeah.
right. I guess one of the things you get to know the client. I would say one of my very first clients, who's a dear friend of mine, we were working through her living room trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And the next thing I know, I'm like, I look at her, I'm like, oh my gosh, this color looks so good on you. She's like, it's one of my favorites. I was like, we're painting the room this color. It's like a
Oh.
plum, aubergine, kind of plummy color, and it's one of my favorite rooms. And she was scared to paint the whole room at first. She was like, oh my God. I was like, no, it's gonna be awesome. But she loves it now. A client's not gonna have a room that in a color that they're not gonna wear. People are scared of color, and there's no reason to be scared of it if you like it. And that's another thing. I mean, if it feels good, you like it, do it. The room's supposed to be you, it's supposed to be about you. The
Hmm.
space is supposed to be about you. Bring out the things that have meaning to them. Like even in my living room, formal living room, I have some shells that I picked up a few years ago when I went to go pick my son up from camp in Florida. And he and I walked on the beach and I picked up all these awesome shells. And I just, you would think, hey, why does she have shells in Wilson, North Carolina? It just doesn't play. But I mean, I think it's neat. It gives another texture. I love collecting things, because it
Hmm.
tells about me.
Shells. It just got me thinking about seasonal. Could we talk a little bit about color and seasonality?
And it's so funny you bring this up because I was talking to the wholesaler that I get all a lot of my greenery from at Christmas. And I was showing her a picture of something I did last year. I said, I mean, I just don't, I mean, I have a little bit of red and green, not a ton of red and green, but you know what? The colors that I use, they're in the family. They're pink and turquoise. So, they don't always have to be exactly red and green. I would say seasonality, as far as decorating, the only season I really find myself embracing, or I guess holiday, maybe I'm taking too much of that away. Maybe I need to come back to season, but I really only decorate for Christmas. Another strong passion of mine that I love, I mean, I wouldn't want to do it full time. I like just doing it just to do it, is flower arranging. I love to work in the yard. And I guess I get that from my dad, who grew up in a farm and all that kind of stuff. And always had us outside. Before I started doing this, I spent a ton of time in my yard. You'll come in and people always laugh. They're like, okay, Worth, that's my husband's name. Gray's been out of town because there are no flowers in this house. And then I'll get back sometimes and he's so sweet. He'll have gone to like the grocery store, so he'll grab a couple of things he knows I love and he'll set them in the sink.
Oh.
And because I think he enjoys the flower, he's like, Mom's home. She's that.
Hmm.
But some of the things my dad has also always taught us is to bring the outdoors in, and my mom too, but he loves it like when my mom goes out on the farm and she cuts like a limb, and just brings it and puts, and I love that too. It brings in the different colors. Soon our ginkgo tree is going to be turning colors. And then, it has a beautiful orange, or not really orange, it's more yellow. And then all the leaves fall, and it's just so pretty, even to bring a few of the leaves inside. So that I would say more as a seasonal thing. Right now, my limelights, I've got some limelights inside that have dried. It's pretty to bring, then that's the season. I used to collect during the fall, get a lot of like the big acorns with the tops in them. Also pine cones, like pretty little pine cones. If you bring them inside and you bake them in low, like a real low heat to kill all the insects, and then you can put them in a hurricane, and that brings in, a more fall decor. So yeah, I would say as far as seasonal things go, it's mostly bringing the outdoors in.
Does texture, because of course we're talking about color a lot, but also as we get into these other seasons, there's a lot of texture. You're talking about pine cones, acorns, leaves, whether it be seasonal or something broader in your like design approach. Do you think about texture frequently?
Oh yeah. Kind of like shells. I put them in a silver dish, a silver little bowl, on top of a another, porcelain plate on top of a book. So you've got all those different textures. I think textures are huge.
Well, you talked about coziness earlier and like how a more sterile environment doesn't really, I mean, maybe to some, but for your personal design sense, like that doesn't really lend itself to feeling cozy. And especially in these like cooler months and the holiday season, I think we all kind of innately crave that. Is that something that do your clients like pull you back in to work with them on a season, like get seasonal feedback, if you will, or like advice?
Yes, I can't believe I'm saying this on a podcast, and you can still put it in there. But I have two clients that I help them decorate for Christmas. And I told them, because it's a lot, it's hard. I'm not going to do this anymore, guys. Y'all are going to have to start learning. They're like, no, we'll pay you whatever, or whatever, please.
What about tables? Do you enjoy putting a table together?
Yes, I guess it's the collector in me. And that goes back to when I was younger. My parents used to always love to go to antique places. I would just kind of be the one that kind of tagged along. And I remember saying to my mom, when I was like in maybe lower school, middle school, I can't remember. I said, Mom, I want to start collecting something. So, like, when y'all come here, y'all look at this stuff, and I want to start like collect. She said, okay, well, let's think about it. And so I started collecting teapots. Unfortunately, I don't know, my parents' house burned. I guess that collector part of me was just kind of always there and enjoyed. So, I mean, gosh, I've got so many little different things I like to collect. I say to people, they come in like, oh, great, I love this. I'm like, everything in my house is for sale because I can tell you there's something else coming behind it. You don't want a house to look like it came right out of the furniture store. This is another little term I like is we gotta get some crunch in there, guys. Let's go to the flea market. Find a
A
little bit
little
of fun.
edge, a little grit. Well,
Yeah.
there's your high low. One of the last things I was wondering, and you kind of touched on it in the beginning with talking about wanting to kind of, we'll use the term educate maybe loosely. I mean, I know there's a degree of actual like education. You were talking about sharing seminars with your clients and bringing them places and making sure they're exposed to some of the things that would help them to probably understand the vision a little bit better. But I want to talk about legacy for a second because I feel like that's something that we often start to think about as we get into these like more sentimental months, if you will. You talked about confidence, and I didn't know like if there was anything legacy wise that you're hopeful that in working with you, your clients carry forward, or that in creating their own spaces with you that you're hoping like what do you see as, I don't know if legacy is the best word to use here, but kind of the legacy of like your spaces or of your experiences and working with your clients.
I just want them to be more confident for them to start their own collections of things. So then it does become a legacy,
Mhm.
of things passed down. You have a daughter or son or a nephew or something that always, has noticed that you collect this and, that they want that. And that's passed down. And I think that's not only legacy comes from things, but also actions. And so I think, a lot of people, and I go back to the silver thing, and I guess it's just because I've always loved it. I don't know why, I just have. I enjoy it because I get it out and we polish it, and I remember who gave it to me, why it was meaningful. A lot of those things, silver wise, are given by meaning. I inherited a lot of the silver I have from my husband's stepmother, who passed away about 16 years ago, and she left me all of her silver, and she was from England, and she just had just some of the neatest stuff and was just such a wonderful lady. And then just things I've collected with my mom and so on and so forth. But I guess what I want people to walk away with and to have a legacy, I just want them to be comfortable in their house and their house to reflect them, and for them to get excited about making their house a home in their collections. The house, I mean, I remember when we bought this house, the sweet couple we bought it from, they said, just remember, this is a house. It's supposed to be enjoyed. And I'm like, absolutely. And I mean, it's not any given weekend night that we have 20 16-year-olds that are in and out of this house. And I don't ever want them to feel like they can't come sit down in my formal living room. I guess that's another thing that has always stuck with me too, from having, your house that you grew up in, for that to be burned and everything. And my mom would said after that, something stuck with me. She was like, it's just stuff.
Mm.
It is just stuff. It's meaningful stuff. But the most important is how people feel in a space. It does put it in perspective, but it does also, it's hard, and it's, to even talk about that because, collections are so important to me. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe, I don't know, maybe again, we've gotten into some psychology part of this today, that maybe that's the
Yeah.
reason you're so important to me. But again, I don't ever want a space to feel like somebody, like the 2-year-old can't come in here and
Well, I think what you're
don't pick up
naming,
my best china, but I mean,
yeah. I think what you're naming is really, it lends its own perspective, because like the perspective of losing it all essentially doesn't always need to mean, I mean, of course there is like a margin, right? Where you're like, okay, it is just stuff. And
Mhm,
what matters is that everyone is safe, and like the people we love and the memories are still there. That's not gone. That doesn't mean that you can't love the things you have just because you could potentially lose them.
mhm,
I think the perspective that I'm getting anyway from what you're sharing is that it almost like getting that experience almost lended a permission,
mhm,
right? To not hide things in a cabinet,
mhm.
to not save things for later because there might not be later.
I just want everybody to feel welcome and for their home to be them.
Yeah. Well, I
And
love
if it's with tons of color, that's me.
that.
Or not.
Well,
I can do that too.
well, on that note, how can people find you?
Instagram, Facebook, my website.
Perfect. And I
Yeah.
will I'll just add here that in the show notes of the episode, I will link to all of that. So anybody listening, if you're looking to connect with Gray, you'll find that in the show notes, nice and easy, one-stop shop. You can go click. Great. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. I wish we had more time because I could talk all things color and design all day with you, but this was a really lovely conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today.
Oh, thank you so much for chatting with me.